Yes.
Can you do that on this side?
Yeah, you can. All right, I need to watch from these seats.
You need to what?
So I can be in the.
Jeff needs to sit next to me, okay? It's going to be confusing for people if we have the Jeffs spread apart.
Okay.
We need Jeffs to be right next to each other.
It's very important.
All right.
Okay.
And then you can switch over to the chatty
This
chats.
is good too, because now I can manage chat.
That's right.
And then we can say hello to the stream. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jeff Krause Beck. I designed Intrepid. This is Jeff No Name. He's just here.
The lesser Jeff.
For some reason.
He's
I don't
just
know.
here to entertain.
Technically, given that I'm older, you spawned from me. I think that's how that
Spawned.
works.
Did you give birth to me?
I did.
That's how it happened.
In the beginning, there was only one Jeff.
Uh-huh.
And
And
then
we all spawned from that one
and then
Jeff.
this little kind of amoeba. Yeah.
We started this 30 seconds ago.
So good timing.
Just in time.
All right. Well, it's a big day that we've been prepping for a very long time.
You never say how long you worked on it.
That's why I didn't. But I will say that this was actually ready to go. 2-3 months ago, and then the whole world fell apart.
World.
I know, it was all because of me, and so I'm very excited to finally have this happen because it's been a long time making, and then needing some patience while things kind of settled down. But it's here, it's happening, for better, for worse. Hopefully for better. All right, but let's do some quick introductions because we have some old faces, some new faces. Let's start here and just move around this way.
Oh, Tim Fowers. I make games. I don't have a title. I'm just
Quick and to the point.
Yeah, it's more like an AA group. It's just,
Yeah,
you can't stop making games.
Please help me.
Tim.
It's really an issue.
Addicted. Yeah, Tim is not the designer of Intrepid, but he did provide a lot of great feedback and support. And
I'm the proud parent clapping from the sideline.
Exactly. All right.
I'm Jeff. I make games.
It's okay. Hi, Jeff.
That's
It's
it.
okay.
That's it.
What was your involvement with Intrepid?
I designed some of it.
Very true.
The good parts.
All the good parts I designed mainly.
Whoa.
Whatever you're playing Intrepid,
And you're happy? You're feeling good
and
inside?
you're happy. Just think about all the bad things that I made not happen. All right, just like if this game could have been worse if it was like that. I'm the one who fixed that. All right.
In the rule book, it'll have sections.
Yeah, exactly.
Old rule, Jeff's rule.
You pick which rule you want. I like that.
Just
It's
pick
like
whichever one.
choose your own rulebook adventure.
Just scratch one off.
No, it would be like, to enjoy this game, turn to page 9. To suffer, turn to page 10.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the suffer will be you.
Yeah.
You're the one that likes to make players. Just
I like to
really-
make the game. a little
I
more-
don't know. When we were playtesting, you were the one that was like, it needs to be harder.
Well,
It needs to be harder.
Well, it's
That was a
more
good
of a courtroom where there's like a prosecutor and a defense. It's like, no, the players need, and you're like, no.
it's true.
Yeah.
But unlike a courtroom, you switch roles.
Yeah. But I'm saying is like, he goes like, it was sometimes he'd want to cut something and no, we need
I do
it.
feel like you were usually in the role of make them suffer.
Yes.
It's a co-op.
It's a co-op.
Someone's got to make them suffer. All right, I'm Jeff Beck. I'm the designer of Intrepid. I also run Uproarious Games, so all the manufacturing will fall on me, all the fulfillment, everything minus all the good parts of the game
Yeah.
falls on me. And then finally we have Juju.
Hi, I'm Juju. I helped with a lot of playtesting. I was kind of an art consultant.
Yeah, a lot of great feedback. Like if you go near the bottom of the page, and you'll see the how the tiles are going to look, not the ugly coffee stain tiles that all the reviewers got, but like the final. That was actually
My concept.
right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff. Not our official artist.
No.
That's Guan Guanchmei.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Art director.
I think that's giving not enough credit to.
Mm.
I did help kind of lead the way on stylistic choices.
Yeah, and also helped us steer clear. The International Space Station being very international in this game, we're celebrating that as much as possible. Have a lot of different nationalities, a lot of different ethnicities. And
Is that a word?
it is now.
That's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's always been a really clear goal of yours, is to have a very international aspect.
But it was good to have someone help, because there are some touchy subjects when you're talking about
Representation.
ethnicities. Yes.
Yeah,
that are
representation
not
is
mine.
really important, and I think that has been a big role of mine, is helping guide the representation to make sure that it's positive and of quality.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So this is only part of the crew. If you go to the bottom of the page, you're going to see several other faces that unfortunately do not live nearby, couldn't join us, but also a lot of fantastic people that helped out. Our artist, we had kind of a UI guy, Heiko. We had a NASA engineer who helped direct our science and technology and make sure that we were talking about real science, because that was another major goal of this game. This is not fantasy make-believe outer space. That has its place, and I'm not knocking those games.
It's not sci-fi.
But yeah, this is not sci-fi. This is hard science. And so all the technologies in the game are real technologies that are on the space station right now, that the astronauts are using right now to survive. And so it was very important to us to have that consultant that can look through our stuff and say, yeah, that's real, or that's kind of more future tech. We're not actually using that yet. And so, we had to pull some things. So, anyhow, so it was a big group that made this all happen.
Can I just say thank you to Nate in the chat? Thanks.
What did Nate say?
He said good luck on this campaign.
Woo! We'll need it.
Yeah, we're in outer space.
It's true. Yeah, so
It's
let's
some
talk
kind of-
about
some kind of frontier.
life in space, because, and this is the major theme of the game, is you take nothing for granted in space. Here on Earth, we get oxygen for free. Depending on where you live, you probably get some kind of water for free.
Gravity for free.
You get gravity.
It's true.
You don't open your door and instantly freeze to death or burn to death. Most people have access to power. All of these things that we kind of take for granted. When you're up on the International Space Station, you can't take them for granted, right? Where's your food coming from? Well, you don't have fields there that you can grow them, and so you have to look to some alternatives. Where is your power coming from? Where is the oxygen coming from? Where is your climate control coming from? These are real life problems that need to be addressed aboard the International Space Station, and that's a major theme of the game, is keeping all those systems running while there's some terrible disaster happening.
I think that one of the inspirations was kind of the hard sci-fi of The Martian, and these kind of we're gonna science our way out of this problem.
Right, exactly.
And very much every turn you're having to earn it. It's not just there's oh, that's working now, we're making poop potatoes and it just works. It's no, every turn you're you have this debt, and if you can't make that number in all of the 4 resources, you lose.
Right.
It's you're always dancing about it.
And I mean, to your point, it very much is a puzzle each round, because not only do you need to make everything anew, but the disaster is going to come and it's going to mess up some portion of what you did. And so now you have to, how are we going to triage that while still doing this? And then ultimately you need to solve these mission cards, which are going to take a big toll on some system. It's we got to take care of that. We got to deal with that. And so it is this we got to really think this through together as a team. We make a plan, then everyone goes off and does their little puzzle to hopefully make it happen.
So, I mean, one of the early things you did very early in the design was the pairing of the A and the B players, where basically the concept is there's players that are in charge of 2 resources, and then there's another 2 resources in charge. So when you play a 2-player game, you both have 2 things covered, and you can still kind of help each other. But in a 4-player game, you have one particular partner. You're like, okay, how are we going to divvy this up? We have to do water and power together. And that whole handoff of like, my thing just got a meteor through it. What are we going to do? And you're like, well, I can turn this, and you have, even within the group, you have a particular partner that you're really synchronizing with. I think that's really strong as well.
Right.
But because you drain everyone else's resources, you have to check in with everyone.
Oh, yeah, when you're building.
So you have partnership as far as like what you're building together, and then you have to work together
with the other people. Yeah, because every time you build a tile, it adds drain to a resource that you don't make.
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, well,
you're like, all right, can I screw you over really quick so that I can do this thing?
Is it okay? Let me check in with you.
It's gonna be great. You'll be fine.
Trust me.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, that is a really big aspect, though. You really have to check in with everyone. It like creates that communication.
Right. Yeah, I really like Space Biff did a little preview for it, and one thing he said about the game is that it's more than cooperative; it's collaborative. And I think that's a really great way of putting it, because there are many cooperative games, co-op games, where you're kind of doing your own thing, and yeah, maybe you'll say, hey, what's going on here, but you're generally just doing your own puzzle. In this one, you have to work together. Like, literally, you will die in the space if you are not working together to solve this problem.
And I think there's even an evolution in the game where you really get into your individual puzzle, and that's really, I mean, we should probably talk about the countries and how different they are, but there's also this evolution of like, you're solving your puzzle, and you'll survive, but then the crisis will, the disaster will take you out. And there's this evolution in like learning how to solve your problem, but then how to solve this bigger problem and how to tackle these bigger issues. So it's kind of like these steps that you work your way out of just like staying alive to like, okay, we need to make enough money to get these things to deal with the crisis. And it really feels like there's this kind of like arc of like player learning that you go through.
It's true. So you have to shift focus as soon as things start getting more real. You're like, okay, let's get ahead of this curve.
And just when you get comfortable, you have to get like, okay, I know how to make enough of what I need to make, but now let's focus on like the victory goals or. Yeah.
So you brought up the different countries, and that's one of my questions for today is how did you guys decide on what countries to include in the game?
As far as the specific countries themselves or the mechanics of the country?
Both.
Okay. Well, the specific countries...
That first.
Yes, let's talk about that. So they were all selected from a list of countries that have had an astronaut aboard the International Space Station. So we didn't just pick them willy-nilly. These represent real individuals that have been to the space station, which I think is really, really cool. We also wanted to have a lot of diversity in countries. We didn't want just the standard European, American countries. We wanted to represent South America. We wanted to represent Southeast Asia, areas of the world that don't see a lot of representation in board games. I felt it was very important because, again, this is the International Space Station. This is a worldwide endeavor. And so, so representing the whole world was very important. So we're starting off with 6. We're going to add a few more during the Kickstarter through stretch goals, hopefully, knock on wood. And then the sky's the limit from there. There are lots of countries that have been to the space station, so we can definitely add more.
That actually relates to another question on this list, which is, can blank country be added to this game? And I think that's really just up to how it goes in the future.
Right, yeah.
But they have to have been to the space station. What was the big one wasn't, it was China?
China's not been.
Which was fascinating. I had no idea. I don't know what diplomacy is going on, but like, I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Malaysia's out there in the International Space Station. China's not.
Interesting.
So interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, but we do have some that we're looking at for future expansions. South Africa has been to the space station.
Cool.
So I'd love to include them. That would be really cool. A few others. Italy's been there. France has been there. So it's like some other European
flags right here.
Oh, there you go.
You
think I know what those flags are?
Do you want to show off?
Norway.
Do you want to show this off, Jeff?
Yeah, I think this is a little launch gift here.
Launch present.
Yeah.
From Tim.
We talked about building it on the stream. We decided that'd be just too much of us looking at the rules.
But yeah, there's a lot of nations.
It's not good television.
No, not especially. But But yeah, so focusing on the whole globe and not just kind of these popular European Anglo-Saxon countries.
Yeah, and even within European countries that have a lot of racial diversity, that was very important to you to represent that racial diversity.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't happen very often that European countries are represented with the actual faces of people living there who are not white faces.
Right. So, so not to say we don't have people of Anglo-Saxon descent. In
Germany, she's a clearly German woman.
but like, for example, the UK is represented by an individual who has, from India.
Yep.
And so different things like that. Just representing, again, diversity, unity, everything that the International Space Station symbolizes.
Awesome.
And then what was fascinating to the other side of these countries is that early in the development was the concept of these highly asymmetric gameplay, and what it really leads to, and I can't really emphasize enough how differently they play. Like, you are doing an entirely different puzzle every time you play a different country, and when somebody else needs a particular number or whatever, and you can help them out, they're going to use it in an entirely different system than you, and that I think really represents bringing in different types of problem solving and cultural thinking that comes from different cultures. It's like they're going to approach this problem from a very different angle from you, and this really helps you display that I have my own strengths and I have things I'm bringing to the table, and just appreciating that they're dealing with their problems in a different way, I think is super fascinating.
It adds like extreme replayability too, because like when you're new to the game, you're doing your thing and you're helping other people do their thing, but you have no idea what they're doing. You're like, I don't understand how you just used those dice. And so then you get the opportunity to learn to play that country, and it makes you want to like learn every single one.
Asymmetry is an interesting thing, right? Because it's a spectrum. On probably the low end of asymmetry, you have situations where everyone's doing generally the same thing, but you have a different player power than someone else, and that's asymmetric. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have situations where everyone is literally playing a different game, and there's these little hooks where they work together, but what you're doing is 100% different than what I'm doing. And all are great. I'm not saying one's better than other, but they all have kind of their pluses and their minuses. On this end, where everyone just has a different player power, well, generally, you are playing the same game. And on this end, where everyone's literally doing something different, that can get really hard to teach or even to learn how to play, because you have to learn 5 different games.
Yeah, and some of the early big, like Vast and whatnot, they had this issue with learning. It's just like, okay, you learn one and you want to play a couple games with one. And I think in this case, they're unique enough, but there's enough kind of in common. There's a common symbology on a lot of tiles. It's like, okay, I need to place both of these at a time, or I can place one at a time. There's certain things like that I think will act as a scaffold moving into another role. But yes, I mean, I don't know. I think we find it super fascinating. We love leader games and everything they've done with asymmetry. And we really, this is really super interesting design space.
Right. So. Yeah, absolutely. So I think this rides a nice balance where the puzzle you're doing is completely different than everyone else's puzzle, but everyone is rolling dice, everyone is placing dice on tiles, triggering abilities, and so you follow the same pattern, but what you're doing to execute that pattern is completely different. Jeff, do you want to talk about maybe some of the mechanics, of a favorite nation?
Okay.
Or maybe how they evolved.
How they evolved? I can talk about, I really like the nation of Germany. And the baseline of Germany is that you roll a lot of dice at the beginning, but then to use your dice, you have to lose dice equivalent to the number of pips on the dice you want to use. So like, let's say I want to use a 3, I have to get rid of the rest of my dice equivalent to a 3. So a 2 and a 1 or a 3 itself can get me so I can use that 3 itself. So it has this interesting puzzle of like, I want to use this tile, and this tile will allow me to change some of these dice. So like, I can pull this dice out, put it here, change these dice, and have this really interesting and dynamic puzzle that you're getting every single turn.
Right. Yeah, the thing I like about Germany is So dice start in storage, and then you pull them out. While they're in storage, they're relatively fluid. Like Jeff said, you have a lot of tiles that can manipulate dice in your storage. Once you pull them out of storage, that's it.
Yep.
They are fixed. You need to place that die. And so it is this interesting sequential puzzle of, like, okay, I need to do this first so I can manipulate this dice, so then I can pull it out, so then I can do... And so, yeah, so you have to kind of really puzzle it through. So Germany is pretty fun. I want to talk about Japan.
My favorite.
Because Japan it's pretty fascinating.
It's pretty extreme.
Weird.
But it's so fun. So Japan, so all other systems, you roll a dice, and then perhaps you can re-roll a dice, or perhaps you can increment it, meaning you can change it from a 3 to a 4.
It'll generate dice.
Right. Yeah, I'll give you a new dice. Japan, how they work is they use the physical 3D space of the dice. So you roll a dice, you lock them in the orientation they're in, and then when you place the dice, you can perhaps get a new dice, you set it, orient it exactly like the dice you just placed, and then you can tilt it perhaps to the left. And so it makes this like 3D puzzle of, okay, I need to rotate it this way and then rotate it this way, and it's really interesting because for some people that are very spatial thinking, it's like, oh, boom, 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 no problem.
I picked up on Japan really fast because it turns the dice into a 3D object with different faces instead of a representation of numbers.
Right, exactly.
It's really
Whereas for other people who maybe are not spatial thinking, they just like look at it and go, oh, my brain hurts.
Which side is the... Yeah.
But you can see how different that is than, say, Germany. And again, we're talking about 6+ nations, all completely different like that.
Is it UK that stacks? That you have to keep building, putting a higher number, and they still play?
Yeah, so UK, unlike all the other countries, you leave dice out between rounds. And then, so say I have a 4 here. The dice you leave out is going to dictate how much resource you make. But in order to trigger that tile, you need to put a dice that's bigger than the one you placed previously. So like putting a 5 is great because it means next round you're going to make a ton. But it's also going to be really hard to use next round. So
you have to get a 6.
Right. So it's, whereas putting a 1 makes it really flexible, but you're only going to make 1. And so you have to you have this ebb and flow with the UK, where this round I may make a ton, but it's really going to mess me up for next round. And so, and that's where that whole teamwork comes into play, where it's like, hey, I'm going to do great this round, but hey, buddy, what are you going to do for me next round? Because we're going to be hurting.
Yeah.
So I have an update from the chat from Nate. He said already over halfway funded.
Well, hey, that's not so bad.
That's exciting. Thanks for the update, Nate. Do you want to talk about the development of each of these countries and like where did you start and how did you get?
What were the first
here?
countries? I guess.
Yeah.
What were the first countries?
I'd say the first countries are all countries are broken up into different complexities. We have 1-star complexity all the way up to 4-star complexity, and I'd say we probably started with the 1-star countries. They're much simpler. So the 1-star country that we're talking about right now is the United States. And generally how that works is when you place a dice, you can get a new dice and set its value to 1 higher or 1 lower than the number you just placed. If I place a 3, I can get a new dice that's maybe a 2 or a 4. And what you're trying to do is ultimately get to doubles. And so you're incrementing and decreasing dice, trying to get to doubles so that you can place that.
The tiles will require a double to place.
Right. And so it's a very simple and easy to understand mechanic. And that's important for the game. Because you're not always playing this game with groups that have lots of experience playing tabletop
I'm not
games.
like a complex tabletop gamer.
Right.
So
maybe you're playing with a younger person or someone who's new to tabletop games, and you want
someone who's just not as big as a nerd as you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
That's most people. Let's be honest.
This game has been a big introduction to like getting into more complex games for me, and I think it's because there's that asymmetry of like you can start with something a little bit less complex and then move your way up.
And even at that point, maybe talk a little bit about that interface that Heiko designed.
Oh yeah,
the wheel, because it's a little intimidating.
That's true. It
when
can
you first
look
see
a little.
You're like, what?
But it's just
So
a
many
tracker.
numbers.
It's literally just a tracker.
It actually helps a ton because the whole concept of debt. There's all these different interfaces that Jeff was playing with for like describing. Okay, we have to make 10 oxygen, and that number is going to go up as we get bigger. that
Because your
debt,
your debt is getting larger all
every
the
time you build, there's a cost.
You got to drain.
So this is the
So this here, and you can see how, in fact, it'll be even slightly bigger than this in the final production. So each player has one of these. In fact, in a 2-player game, everyone has 2 of these because you need 4 in order to track the 4 main resources aboard the station. So this is a big map. And what's cool about this is you always start your token here in the bottom left corner, and then you're going to count up. And you can see it starts in the red. I don't know how well you can see that, but go to the Kickstarter page, you can see it better. So it starts in the red, and then at the end of the round, you count how many you made. If at the end of the round you're in the red on any of them,
Below 0,
you just lose me.
too bad.
Yep.
It's game over. So you need to be really careful. Now, generally, you're gonna bust it out and do fine. So it's not a big concern, especially not early in the game, but it can happen. But like we talked about a little earlier, when you buy new tiles, you're going to increase the drain on a resource. So, for example, if Jeff buys maybe a power tile and it's going to hit the drain on nutrition, what does that look like? Well, what we do is we spin this little wheel here.
Can I hold it up closer?
Sure.
You spin that. Oh, now we're going -14.
Yeah, that happens.
And it goes
That
really
happens.
far because it does happen.
It needs to go far.
It needs to go far. Sometimes you get some crazy debt.
Right. So the nice thing is, when you get this increased drain, you still just start your counter in the bottom left, and then you just count up. So it makes it really easy to track.
And then it'll continue over. So if you keep going here, so now the 5 is over here. So you just go to the next row and work your way up to count. So it helps.
And it goes all the way up to, let's see, what's the highest number right now? 59. Because sometimes you can actually make that many of a resource.
You can blow stuff out.
You're lucky.
Well, and to talk about that, so the resources, the money that you get between rounds to buy stuff, the capacity, comes from the lowest number of all your resources. So not only do you have to get everyone over 0, you want to try to even it out and get everyone an equal amount above 0 to actually make your money.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, sometimes you want to pour more into a certain resource because there are these goals. If you can get past these certain thresholds, you get very unique bonuses. So really, as you're talking with the group, there are these kind of extra dice you can put in the middle, and you can decide. It's like, oh, well, we can tip this over into this threshold and get this bonus, or we can all make more money by raising our lowest resource by 2 or whatever. So choices to be made and discussions to have.
Yeah, lots of choices. And so like we were talking about, everyone's in charge of making 2 of these. In a 4-player game, you have 2 people making each 2, and you definitely need to work together because of that whole situation where capacity, which is your currency in the game, is based on your lowest one. It doesn't work to have one just skyrocket up and the other and everything else just suck in mud because
You're not going to
you're
make
not
money.
Build anything.
Yeah, and then when the disaster comes and hits you, you're not going to be able to react to it.
Yeah.
And so you have to work together to say, okay, well, if I'm going to boost nutrition, but what was our lowest? Okay, it's power. Okay, what are you going to do to fix power? And then he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. Well, boy, if you do that, that's going to hit climate. And boy, climate's already in trouble. And
Let's go back to the creation of this game. Because we can go on and on about how this game works because it's really fun. But how did you first develop like the different mechanics for how you're using these dice in unique ways?
so, like I was talking about before, we started down with the simpler ones. And those are kind of universally used ways of manipulating dice. We should say, okay, so we're talking a lot about dice. This is a dice game. You're going to see lots of dice in the box. You're going to roll lots of dice. However, don't let that fool you. This is not a luck game.
Yeah.
A lot of dice games, you roll a dice, whatever you roll is what you have, and then you try and use them as best you can. That is not this game at all. Your initial roll of dice has some, but not a great deal of impact on your final output. Right?
Yeah,
Because there are
there's
so
so
many
much
different
freedom.
ways of manipulating dice and exchanging dice with other players and working together.
The dice roll is just the puzzle.
Right.
Right. Every die roll for each player is generating a new puzzle every turn for them to solve, and they have a lot of different ways to solve it. And then they have teamwork, where it's just straight up, I just need a 6, because sometimes it's this whole chain reaction.
Right.
Like, I just need a 6, but you didn't want to do too much of that because in like Walkstar, we had all this, we were dice creating resources thing. But there's this problem where people were just like, kind of just put all their dice together or just be like, hey, I need that. And they were just a little too willy-nilly. So you really kept it to that central station on like, you only have these 4 to share.
So there are 4 spots where you can share dice with someone else. And once those 4 are used up, that's it for the round. And yeah, that's very important because, in a 4-player game, you're going to roll a ton of dice. And so someone's going to have the dice you need.
Hopefully.
And, probably. And so if you could share as many as you wanted, then it would kind of eliminate the entire puzzle.
Yeah.
And so, we had to kind of tighten it down where generally speaking, you can use your own dice. But yeah, sometimes there is a situation where, boy, I really just need a 2 to make this all happen. Who can help me out with a 2? And then you can work with the group.
But for the most part, you can manipulate your dice in so many different ways that, that's what's fun about it, is you're finding these ways to change dice and use them to your advantage. So it is a little deceitful to call it a dice game because there's not a lot of chance.
There's so much strategy involved, and so it's not really a luck-based game at all.
But I don't know what else. What was the earlier theme?
Oh yeah.
So
That's a
it's
good
true.
question.
It wasn't always International Space Station. In fact, when we first started talking about that, I really pushed back on that because there are so many space games.
Right.
And I was like, I just don't want to be just another space game out there. That's so bad. And again, I love there's many space games that I really enjoy. So I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying it's a really crowded space.
Yeah. Sci-fi is popular for a reason, but it's popular. So it's nice to have something more grounded in reality.
Well, and a lot of those are more space opera or space empire or like things like that. This is more like, and I think when we were having this discussion, it was more like, you're the Martian. Like, how is this hard sci-fi? How is this like, this is a little clubhouse in space that you're just keeping together barely.
Right.
And that's a different feeling than we couldn't really find anything that.
And this is definitely not a 4X or something like that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Who originally brought up ISS?
I don't know. It was one of you two. Was it you?
Kraus?
That's probably me.
And you were like,
yes.
And now you're in your
And
NASA shirt with your ISS.
Listen, I love space. Hey,
you're so obsessed
my
with the
daughter
ISS. Like the research that
She's studying
went
to be
in.
an astral engineer right now.
Oh yeah.
So this is very close to home for me. I love space.
The research that went into making sure it was all real technology, like, I
all
saw
the,
you get
all
real
the tech tiles you build are like either an existing or speculative near-term tech.
Right. These are all real things.
She's studying to be an astro engineer.
Yeah. She wants to work for NASA or SpaceX, or that's her goal.
Did this game inspire?
No, this is maybe the other way around. So the original design idea was a cooperative city builder.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
There's no city builders out there. Come on.
It's true. Yeah. Talking about crowded.
Crowded law.
That was just kind of a whole.
But this is the process. Is like we rely on each other to lobby for different things, and that's how good things come out of it.
Yeah. You got to start, and you got to be flexible, and you got to see where the design takes you. I mean, this has a lot of feels of survival aboard a really tight, almost claustrophobic space. Mm-hmm. So it fits International Space Station theme really, really well. Now, when we first started, it was more sprawling and felt more like a city. And so, I think picking this theme helped influence the design in such a way that now it really fits that
like the crises
well.
Yeah, the disasters and the crises. What was it before? It was a city build, so you're going to have like Godzilla.
Yeah.
There's all these disasters that were like...
it was basically, if you played the old SimCity games, and you could click that button that says, destroy my city, and that was like the best part of the whole game.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of the idea.
So do you feel that this theme influenced game design changes? Oh, that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Yeah, before it was. Oh, there was a dystopian thing to it
Oh
Yeah.
the zombie apocalypse theme.
No, it was
Well, and like-
it was like the
Like all the
Department of-
different, your
double
whole
speed.
departments of
It was like
something.
1984-ish kind of thing, and but lining it up with like oxygen, food, power,
Yeah,
heat.
it was a huge win.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah,
These are things you need to survive.
Right.
yeah. And it's just like when you run out of that thing, you know exactly how you die. You can visualize it very well.
Yeah. Well, and like, to the question of did this theme influence design, let's talk a little bit about the disasters. You'll see on all the previews people playing the meteor shower disaster. That's the disaster we shipped out to reviewers to take a look at. But it's definitely not our only one. And they all have a different feel, and we really designed them to feel like that specific disaster. So, for example, with the meteor shower, you'll see that it kind of sprays the station with these little meteorites that do just little bits of damage, just poking little holes into the space.
A little drag.
Right. It's not the end of the world immediately, but it's definitely going to hurt over the long haul. But it's hitting the station itself. Whereas with Toxic Leak, which is the one in the expansion, totally different feel. Talk about that a little bit, Jeff.
Okay, so Toxic Leak, we're still like pinning it down completely, but right now the idea is that if you were to use a tile, you have to discard a dice, or you can have a chance and roll your dice to use the tile. And Toxic Leak has a die that increments up every single turn, and so the further and further you go along, the harder and harder it is for you to use your tiles. And so you need to kind of wait out if you really need to use that tile or not, or if you can kind of be like, we don't need this. This is fine if I don't use this tile, right? Teammate who's making that resource.
And so from a thematics point of view, again, the meteor shower feels like the station is under a barrage of micrometeorites poking holes in it. Whereas the station's fine. Nothing bad is happening to your tiles. What's happening is to you. Your ability to place dice is getting harder and harder. Just like if there was a toxic leak aboard the station and your ability as an astronaut to do anything is getting harder and harder because you're getting sicker and sicker. And so the feels are totally different, but it does feel like that specific disaster that we're trying to.
How many
go after.
disasters come with the main pledge right now?
So right now in the main pledge, so you're getting the base game and you're getting the expansion for free. That's included on the main pledge, and each one has a disaster. They're hopefully, again, knock on wood, there's going to be some stretch goals for more disasters, but we'll kind of see how things go.
Gotcha. So you're possibly planning on adding more.
Yeah, hopefully.
And you're possibly planning on adding a mystery country?
Yes, there are one or more countries also coming, so we're going to up that number from 6 right now. Right now there's 4 in the base game and then 2 in the expansion, and hopefully through stretch goals we can add more so we can have 4 and 4. So
Cool.
it would be awesome to have 8 countries.
Is there a print and play version of Intrepid?
Good question. There's not a print and play. We've done print and plays in the past. We would have loved to, but
It's just
the components. Trying to do them at home would be.
This?
You're right. I mean, yeah.
oh no, it's how many tiles?
100. I can't. Yeah. I mean, total tiles there's 170 or something.
How often would he reprint a set of
Oh,
tiles?
so often.
I mean, Jeff's main job in game design, I don't know if I'm going to break this down for you guys, is not designing a game. He prints it out on those cardboard papers, and he sits on a little chair over there, right? We got a special little chair for him. It says Jeff on the back
Paper cutter.
in with a rainbow effect on the back of it. And we give him a little set of safety scissors. We don't want him to hurt himself.
Oh, yeah.
And he just sits there and he just cuts out tiles.
Love it.
It was a lot.
That's
Yeah.
how it is.
Wait. Don't discredit the spreadsheets. All right?
Yeah,
That's the other job.
Just a little spreadsheet.
Oh, no.
You got a spreadsheet.
It was spreadsheet time, printout time, test time. It was
Printing
a
cutting.
third.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's you want to talk about our process. This is exactly how so we do some playtesting. We go, okay, well, boy, those
It was
tiles maybe
disappointing
are
when
too
it was-
expensive.
When it was like one game, and you're like, all right. And like I don't know, a
Back
couple
to-
of days printing out a whole new set, and then we'd like solve some new thing with it. Okay, we need just like into the trash.
I mean, not every time did I print out new tiles. Sometimes we would actually, in fact, you can look at some of the old
Yeah.
tiles. They're like,
Yeah.
they're marked up, and then they cross that out, and they
Most
mark
Most
that,
of
they
the
cross
time
that out,
it's
and
like
mark that
that,
out.
yeah. And then as soon as they get too marked up, then you're
Yeah, or if
Or
it's
is
like
it
completely reset, it's like, okay, this
some
tile was
balance
totally
issue.
different.
You should really take some screenshots of the spreadsheet. It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, so the spreadsheet is kind of this magical thing. It has all the tiles in the entire game, and it allows me to balance tiles. Because one thing that's important about this game, so all these different countries are all completely different, but it's very important that they all have equal power levels.
Yeah.
Their complexity is very, very different.
It's not just how much they produce, how quickly they progress across that, and then how much money does that take?
How many dice do they need? All these different things, and so that no one country is like, I'm the king, right? They all need to be equal power, and so balancing that is
big
a trick
for sure. The spreadsheet is cubic meters.
Cubic meters of genius.
It's
So there you go. So I'm not just there with my.
How many? We had a stack of these, right? Of these.
Yeah.
How many of those? We went through one ream.
Oh yeah.
Two reams?
We've been through 2.5 reams.
They're like, and they're not even like a normal ream. It's just this pure like cardboard, and then ink. It was not really ecologically friendly, at least. But
this is what the game
you gotta
work through stuff.
To be fair, I don't think you reprinted until things were like covered in markers.
No, that's
yeah. But there was a lot of it was
yeah. How many iterations of this game, like the balance passes, will be done? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. But there's
And usually, if the balance pass is too hard, then you're into it. You're like, perfect.
Oh yeah. That's what we want.
And it does swing like very. I mean, it was very obvious when something was just a little too easy. You're just like, and because of the way the economy works and the capacity, it's like once things are going well, like you have tons of money and everything's flowing super well, and that was just like, that wasn't good. And then just like the death is so immediate,
right.
You're like, we're dead in the second round or whatever,
or
that's
just
not
punishing
good.
the whole game. You're like, we're never getting anywhere, and you just feel like you're getting crapped on the entire time. That's not good either.
And so there's all these fail states for like, so not only are you balancing one economy, you're balancing all these different nations across this need to get in this flow state where like you're challenged and really you can show your skill by like, if we do the right sequence of things, we can actually make enough capacity to kind of get above the problem and whatnot. But it really is in that middle range now where you can really develop skills around particular countries and dealing with crises.
Right? Yeah, and you don't have that feeling like you don't have a feeling of like, oh, we got this, or oh, we're going down.
Yeah.
It's kind of in this unknown the whole time.
Yeah, it's very gratifying
suspenseful.
when we give it to a playtester and they play several games, and at first they're like, whoa, this is so hard.
This is new.
There's definitely the evolution there.
And then they play a few more and like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then they start developing some strategies. Because like you say, it's really easy to just get into the tactics of their individual puzzle and then not think about the overall strategy, the overall puzzle of how we're going to solve this problem. And so it takes them maybe a game or two to figure that out. And then by the fourth or fifth game, they're like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't. Because, even in games where you win in this, our goal is it's down to that wire, right?
Yep.
It's really a close win.
Are you planning on translating Intrepid?
Into other languages?
Yeah.
In fact, I've already had a few people reach out and offer to help with that, with some professional translation teams.
Cool.
So, yeah, that would definitely be a goal, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So we won't necessarily print the game in different languages, but the rulebook will be hopefully available in several different languages.
And there is a lot of visual language on the tiles.
Yeah, that's true.
That will help. I mean, the names and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, the symbology can get you a lot of the way. So the tiles, the tiles themselves, and since a lot of this is numerical, it's not super language dependent. That's why I think it would be easy to translate.
Yeah.
Versus other games that they're very,
very language heavy.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome to do that, to really speak to the international
aspect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know what other questions I want to ask you. I feel like you covered a lot of things just chatting, which is great.
One thing I want to talk about here is the top one here, which is Intrepid done and ready to go?
Oh, ready for manufacturing.
And the answer is no. And I want to make that really clear to everyone, because this is not a pre-order, and that's not just because we're kind of lazy or we haven't finished yet. It's because I really believe in the power of crowdsourcing, not just the finances, but aspects of the game. Looking back at my previous games, a lot of the great changes that were made were because the backer community said, "Oh, we like this," or "This will be here's a great suggestion,"
or just blind spots. Like,
Yeah.
so there's sometimes you just won't see something, and when you have that many eyeballs on it, you're like, oh yeah. Like
Right.
almost all my campaigns, I'd say 10% of the game comes from really good ideas from the community, and then you have to fold that in. You have to be like, okay, how is that going to impact everything once you decide to do it?
Exactly. And so if the game was 100% baked and like ready to go to print tomorrow, that wouldn't be an option for us.
Right.
And so it is important to bring it at a state where we can take your feedback, we can try and work to improve the game.
But it's at the point. I mean, the reason you're here is that that it's good.
Right.
Like the bones are good. It works really. It's at the point that we're like, okay, what are we missing, and how can we go from good to great through this process?
And even if pledgers didn't have any feedback, you'd be like, I knew it. It's already good.
Well, even the reviewers has been
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, speaking of pledgers, is there anything that's Kickstarter exclusive for the game?
So there's not in the base pledge. The base pledge, you're going to get the base game and the expansion, and that will be the same base game and expansion that will be available after the Kickstarter campaign is over. The exception to that, and this is especially important during these first 48 hours of the campaign, is there will be a mini expansion that will be time exclusive. It will be exclusive for the first year after we release it. And it will be a nation. We're not talking about it yet. Actually, we'll probably get your feedback as to which nation this is. But we do have a mechanic that we're working on for it that is weird, really special.
So,
really cool.
but is that going to have a SKU, or is that just going to be available on the site?
So it will eventually either be rolled into a different expansion or it'll have its own SKU.
Okay.
We'll kind of see what that looks like. But that will be a year out after its release. So that will be exclusive to this campaign for some time.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
This one I'm not familiar enough with Kickstarter to understand, but if a person pledges a lower amount, will they be able to upgrade in the pledge manager? Oh, that makes sense to me, actually.
Yeah. So basically the question is, if I pledge at $1, can I eventually upgrade my pledge to get the full game?
Right.
And the answer is absolutely. And that's very important, especially during this crazy time that we're in, because I understand that finances are tight for some people.
Yeah.
And you may not have $60 right now to drop on this game.
Yeah.
But you're really excited about this game. This game looks really cool. So can you pledge $1 and then get it 6 months later? Absolutely. So go ahead and lock in your pledge now at whatever level works for you, and then long term we'll make that happen.
We'll do an announcement before which reminds me, I need to do that for Brutal too. You need to lock that down.
Let's see. Will there be a solo mode?
Yes. There'll definitely be an option that you can play this game on your own.
Looks like news to Kraus.
You knew this.
It's just, I mean, what was he doing half the time?
It's true.
He'd have
Cutting out squares.
he'd have four boards in front of him, just like rolling all four dice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the solo mode will be more streamlined than just you playing 4 different countries.
Right.
That's not what we're looking at. But there'll definitely be an option because that's
Cool.
important to some people.
Yeah.
So we got a comment or a question.
Oh, hello. If I back for multiple copies for friends saving on shipping, will they get the mini expansion too? Great
Yeah.
question. Thank you, Room.
If you back today or during the next 48 hours, and you pick up multiple copies, we'll make sure that all those copies get that mini expansion.
And you can combine shipping if you back multiple copies.
Absolutely.
It'll be in the pledge manager. No, the pledge manager.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have the? Okay, but they won't have to. They don't have to know the amount per copy now and add it to their pledge now. They can add it later.
Yeah.
Good.
What was my question? It was something about the art because that's what I was involved in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Art, awesome.
people might be curious why you didn't go with Ryan.
No, that's a really good question. Ryan
Ryan Goldsberry.
Right, because
I know that.
all of our games in the past, we've used Ryan Goldsberry. This is kind of a first endeavor in trying a different artist.
Woo!
Yeah, right? You like that little
It's good. It's good.
So, I love Ryan's stuff,
Mhm.
and I will definitely use Ryan in the future. But this was not the right setting for Ryan's style.
Well, it was the hard sci-fi. This is a serious game.
Right. This is a serious game. This is these are real people in a real place doing a real thing, facing real challenges.
The thing that makes Ryan's art exciting is that it's whimsical and cartoonish.
It's more adventurous.
Yeah.
So his was not the right style for this game.
Yeah.
And so that's why we had to search, and we took a long time finding the right artist.
Yeah.
I hired, I don't know, probably half a dozen different artists to do like a test run.
Whoa.
And obviously, all but one didn't work out because we wanted to find just the right person. And Gwalchmai is fantastic. He's amazing. And his art, it just really nails it.
It's so beautiful. And it has the realism that's really essential for this game.
Yeah, and it's a mix of like the detail is there, but there's still this kind of concept art, kind of impressionism to it.
Yeah.
I love
the brush strokes.
Yeah. So the art I think is fantastic, and it's exactly the look that I really wanted with this game.
Have you thought about doing any prints or anything for the?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Good. I don't know if people are into that.
Yeah.
I mean, the art. I feel like his art would just be gorgeous.
I mean, I know I want it.
I know, me too.
You got another question there?
Yes. Let's see. 1900 left towards pledge goal.
What?
Thank you guys. That's so fast.
Ridiculous.
Thanks everybody. That's really
So
awesome.
we might actually make a game. 2,400.
And thanks Mark for letting us know.
Great.
That's really exciting. How do you feel, Jeffs?
I feel.
God.
You have emotions going on right now?
I feel
You
thumbs
need
up.
that shirt that lights up with your different emotions.
Is thumbs up a feeling word?
Yep. I use it in Discord all the time, so it better be.
So
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to plug, if you are interested in trying the game out, like we mentioned, we don't have a print and play because it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the game is available on Tabletopia right now for free to play. Now, Tabletopia is a website where you can go in and try out the game. It does not have rules enforcement. What is it?
No, we're good. I love Tabletopia.
I don't think you knew.
Surprise! What do you think I've been doing for the last 3 months?
Snip, snip, snip.
Snip, 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 snip.
No, actually,
Let's
and
see.
the truth of the matter is, when the pandemic hit like literally a day after I shipped out review copies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went into quarantine lockdown. And so now I had all these reviewers with copies that couldn't get together with their gaming groups to play the game. And so, bless their heart, like Jonathan from Geek Dad, literally, and this is not a simple game, but he literally set up webcams and then over a Skype said, "Okay, what dice do you want to use?" Okay, and
Oh my god.
like it took like 4 hours.
That's
This is
amazing.
like a 90-minute game on the outside, but he was
Running
so,
everyone's dice.
bless his heart.
That is so
And so
amazing.
I felt so bad. So, okay, we got to do something else.
Yeah.
And so I digitized the whole thing, put it up on Tabletopia. So it is available now to try it. Keep in mind, Tabletopia does not have any rules enforcement. It doesn't have any AI or anything.
Well, there's the
like that.
rule book on the.
Right.
Right.
So you need to familiarize yourself with the rules, and then you can go try it and kind of get a feel for the game.
So Nate's back in here saying there aren't any pictures on the Kickstarter page of the entire game laid out on a table during gameplay. How about how much space does it take for a 4-player game?
It's not
It's
a
a large
small
game.
by any means, right? You're going to need your full table. Now you don't necessarily need a massive table, but it's going to take
3 by 3, 3 foot by 3 foot. Or
Yeah.
4 by 4.
Like a small round dining table would be fine.
right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you basically need you have a board where you're building the station. Every player.
And that's probably 24 by 12, that whole center
Right.
area.
And Nate, thanks for asking. Maybe we'll get a picture
Yeah,
of
we
the
can-
whole
we can.
layout. Yeah.
And there's
also,
some
if
on
you
the, on
check
some
out,
reviews have.
Yeah, a lot of reviews do.
or
again,
if
you go to
or the how to
Tabletopia,
play
see
video,
it.
you can tell.
Right.
And then Mark also wanted to let us know 1,000 left. This pledge will be finished before our stream is done.
I mean, I wouldn't complain about that.
That'd be awesome.
We can have a little celebratory moment. Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about is with regards to mechanics, because a lot of people, there are not a lot of games that are like this, and so people are looking for, okay, this must be a dice placement, like a worker placement kind of game, and I want to make it clear to people, this is not that. Rado in his review referred to it as a dice placement, and it has kind of the feels of that because you are placing dice and then triggering an ability, but it's not like that in the sense that in most worker placement games you have maybe 6-8 options and you have 2-3 workers that you can place, and so the game there is, okay, which of all these options are the most important right now? That is not this game, and so if you're going into it thinking it's going to feel like that, it doesn't feel like that. More what it is, it almost feels more like a deck builder that you need to trigger the quote cards in your deck by placing dice on them. And so just like in Dominion, you're going to be able to trigger probably all of your tiles.
Well, just for example, if it was a worker placement, there are some races or countries that have like your particular. I trigger one that triggers another, that triggers another, that triggers another, and sometimes that chain goes super long, and you'll be, or other ones where there's just you have this whole army of workers. It's like the feels are very different. If you're going to try to map it to a worker placement, it doesn't. Yeah.
Right. It feels much more like an engine builder in the sense that you are progressing and you're getting more powerful. You're unlocking new tiles that become more and more powerful as you progress. The only reason it doesn't feel like an engine builder is because this disaster is equally getting more and more powerful, and it's slamming you harder and harder. And so it's almost kind of like a survival game.
Yeah.
But where your abilities are getting more and more impressive, but the problem is getting more and more impressive as well.
Well, and it is a survival game, but then you also have end game goals. It's
Right.
not just survival. Like you can't only focus on surviving.
Yeah. So I mean, this has been a process of development, and we did try several different like kind of end conditions. And one condition we did try was just, can you survive for a certain period of time? But that really lacked this like, hey, we did it. We conquered the bad guy.
We just did not die. It wasn't a satisfying
Yeah, not dying is like,
It'd be kind of like if you were watching The Martian and he just didn't die, and then at the end of the movie, the rescue ship shows up. Like it's important in that movie that he sciences out a way to get off himself, and so it kind of has that feel.
Mark is back to update us. He said, pledged onto stretch goals now. And
what?
Rune also said, funded in less than an hour. Congrats.
That's insane.
Yay! Thanks, everybody.
Have emotions.
Thumbs up, everybody.
That's really
that's a
awesome.
social cue when you should have an emotion.
Go!
That's wild.
All right,
though.
that's awesome. Let's talk just a minute about stretch goals.
Yeah.
Because we have a bunch planned.
Yep.
A lot of them are going to improve components of the game. I'd like to get some better dice in there. I mean, since it is a dice-heavy game, it would be nice to have some custom dice that look really cool.
Ooh.
But a lot of them are also new mechanics in the game, new countries, like we talked about, a new disaster. Now thinking really long term, like this just goes insanely crazy. I'd love to get some really nice work with game trays and get some really nice game trays in there. So that, when you pull out your nation, you just pull out your little tray and then everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
That'd be sexy.
If it goes super bonkers, I'd love to swap out the board with just like a mat you can just roll out, and there it is. And that would just have a really great feel to it. So, we'll see where things go. Who knows?
Write a letter to Santa.
Yeah, that's right.
Ryan came in to say, love the illustrations. I'm excited for this. Yeah, we were just talking about that. The art is really beautiful.
Yeah. Walchmai. So like I said, we worked with a bunch of different artists trying to find them. I found Walchmai on Reddit. He was just posting some art, and I said, this is the look I need.
That's the style.
And reached out to him and said, hey, how do you feel about board games? And he'd never done a illustration for a board game before, so this is new ground for him. But I think he's got a lot of potential. So.
Do you have a backer? You know how you can change your icon?
Oh, I don't, but we could.
Well,
cool.
yeah, if
That'd
you
be
guys,
fun.
I mean, for the different countries, and then do you have nice close-ups of them on the page? Because I think even just being like,
There's
A few.
I mean, they're like this big.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
just doing a parade of countries. I mean, you haven't revealed them all yet, but as those unlock, doing a nice high res.
Yeah.
So people can see it.
Yeah, because they do look really, really cool.
Yeah, and they have really beautiful racial diversity that I feel really comes through. Like, you can tell that UK is Indian. You can tell that Canada is like indigenous Canadian.
Right.
Like at least I feel that you can really tell that, and I think that representation is so important. And age too, yeah.
Is it Malaysia?
Malaysia, he's
Oh,
old
he's
dude.
my favorite.
Yeah. He's awesome.
He's like, I'm putting up with these kids.
Yeah, so lots of diversity. Also, it was very important to me to have there's an equal distribution of male astronauts and female astronauts.
Yeah.
Like I said, my daughter is studying to be an astronaut engineer. So getting some women excited about science and represent, because there are lots of women aboard the International Space Station.
Lots of female astronauts.
all the time.
Yeah.
And so having that feature is
Well, I don't know if you know he has 4 daughters. I just don't know if that's a
It's a lot of daughters.
they keep coming.
And his first daughter just went to college last year.
Yeah.
And she's in the what's the program?
And she's in the engineering program right now.
Yeah. And it's up at Utah State and they have a specialty in satellite building and astrophysics.
So
Right.
cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, when you talk to her, I can like feel the smartness radiating off of
Oh,
her.
yeah. IB, AP,
Yeah.
She's,
And she loves this game. She loves interesting. So of my 4 daughters, I'd say 3 of them really love board games. One, the youngest, is kind of counterculture. You know.
She's very counterculture. Like me.
But my third, Madison, she especially loves board games, but she hates cooperative games. Like we
I
bought
didn't.
Pandemic Legacy, and I was super excited. Back in the day, I was super excited. We played like 2 games. She's like, I'm done. We're like, but it's the whole campaign. She's like, no, I don't.
because she's the prodigy at Fugitive though.
Oh yeah. But the thing about cooperative games for her is she hates anyone even suggesting what she should do on her turn.
Yeah, she's a very independent person.
Right, exactly, and she's very good at board games, and so when we're playing Pandemic, I'm like, well, maybe you should, and kind of discussing like, oh, maybe you should do that, and that just did it for her.
Drives her crazy.
And so she loves Intrepid.
I played Intrepid with her so many times, and we always have a blast.
Because, and this is something we should talk about, is it really just solves the quarterbacking alpha player situation. Because for 2 reasons. First off, everyone's playing simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's something we've talked about, but we should talk about it more because it's a really cool feature of the game. Everyone's playing at the same time, which kills quarterbacking because I'm busy doing my thing, so I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And it's also really cool because it keeps everyone engaged. Everyone's going all the time, right? You're not sitting there waiting, okay, are you done with your turn? Let me pull out my phone.
The way the turn evolves is there's usually a couple early calls, like I need a 6 to get my sequence started, to get everything going. Other than that, it's usually everyone kind of works through their problem, and then when someone will call up, I have extras of this, or I need something, and usually towards the end, when people are trying to like finish up their last couple tiles, is when kind of the trading happens.
You start to collaborate a little.
You kind of come out of your hole, and you're like, okay, but there's some earlier times as well.
Sometimes during the middle, you'll check with just your partner who's making the same resources. Like,
Right.
oh, I'm really struggling on this one. Are you making enough of that?
Can you switch gears?
Yeah.
But that's so interesting for me to hear that about Madison because usually when we play, me and Madison are on each other's team because it's just more fun for us that way. And like the cooperation is like so there and so engaging. And
But it's not a situation.
she'll be the one checking with me, like, hey, are you on top of this? Like,
Right. But
and
it's
I'm like,
collaborative as opposed
right.
to I'm instructing you what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And
so good.
so I really think if cooperative games maybe are not your thing, check this one out because it has a different feel to it. And it
It's
really
true.
solves some of these other
There's
problems.
no time to sit there and be like, you guys, what should I do? Do you think this? Do you think this? Like checking in with everybody.
Right.
Or just the feeling of I can't tell you what to do because you're working on an entirely different plan than me.
And
True.
that's the other side
Like,
of why quarterbacking just doesn't
You
happen.
know, someone's like all the way working through this problem of how they're going to rotate their dice. Or is it Brazil that you lower and raise them? So
Malaysia, right?
Oh, Malaysia. You try to get them all up and then you try to move them all down. There's this whole sequence and you can't no one can help you do that.
Right.
So you feel like you've earned your contribution.
Right.
Okay.
To be honest, I have caught myself quarterbacking when someone else is playing Japan.
Because you love it
I'm
so
like,
much.
no, you gotta turn it this way. The spatial awareness.
Oh, there are these two. We mentioned these. So in addition to sharing dice, there's what are these called?
So we call those careers, and so there's going to be a bunch in the game. I think we have 6 right now, and we're going to bring out some more as well, some stretch goals.
I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah. And so we will swap them in and out.
Oh, cool. They're modular.
Yeah, and so and they represent different kind of roles aboard the space station. Like you might have the the botanist. You might have, and so they all have their own different way of how you can just kind of slightly break the rules and help another player. They're generally ways that you can help out the team as opposed to
you
help
give
yourself.
something.
Right. Yeah, and there's almost always a little cost involved. Like for example, one of the ones I enjoy is I think it's the technician that can increase the drain on his resource, but then decrease the drain on someone else's. And so it's like, okay, I can sacrifice to help the team out.
Cross loves that one. He'll be playing power or something, and he's just like goes negative $1 billion.
I'll be fine.
He's like, you guys don't have any drain. It's fine. Let me take it off.
Or another one that's fun is you can take all the negative impacts on a particular tile and move them onto one of yours. And so if you have a tile that just got completely hammered, but you need that tile. That tile is super critical to you. Okay. Well, you know what? I have this tile. It's not that important to me. So I'll take all those negative aspects, put them onto my tile. Now you're in the good place, but now I'm extra hurting. And so it's these little ways of like self-sacrificing, which are very important to a cooperative game, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I can take one for the team to help everyone else out.
And I believe strongly in just cooperative design in general. Not just that I have something that can help you, but the fact that I'm giving up something to help you is a signal that you're important and your needs are important to the group, and I can have a heavier load because of that. And I mean, it's in games, but it's a little more rare than I. There aren't a lot of games that do it well. Very often they'll be like, hey, you have this extra thing you can trade with or whatever, and they're like, you have to give this away. No. The idea is that I'm going to give up something. I think is super important.
Yeah, it really gives you that feeling of like the team is more important than me as an individual.
So
yeah, there's only one other game that I know that does that. It's called Burger Bros 2.
In other projects, so Jeff was locked down for a couple months, couldn't do the Kickstarter, so he took on the project of making Fugitive, and so Fugitive, you go to playfugitive.com. There's an entirely
it's a web app. It'll run on a computer or on your phone. It's very
free,
mobile-friendly.
Multiplayer online, and it was like a month.
Yeah.
And he brushed off his old, HTML.
I haven't programmed in, 10 years at least.
Yeah, at least 70 years.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been a while.
And we've just got it out there for free, and more people are playing it. It has full async. And we even did different things like email notifications, because it's not an app, but it has notifications on like if someone's taking a long on the turn, you can just get an email. And it's slick, and we were able to get even some new art into it. And it was also because like we were trying to make a Fugitive app for a while, and making a really good AI just doesn't measure up to playing a real person. And so we're just like, let's do that. And so that is, that's going to be ongoing for free, and I'm excited about that. So
it's interesting how some games lend themselves to AIs more than others, right? Like when we were working on Walkstar, making an AI that could just try out all the different combinations of different things was I don't know, I want to say trivial, but we knocked that out.
We did Monte Carlo. Jeff Krause here
trivial.
We did Monte Carlo simulations for
pure skill.
But you didn't do.
So we tried Monte Carlo on this, but it was way and we kept simplifying it. Like, okay, what's Monte Carlo? So Monte Carlo, for those who don't know, is when you have a computer basically play the game very quickly, and then you can try out, you can balance things. And so we said, let's do that. It'll help balance. So we tried that, and there's a whole bunch of nations. They all play different. Okay, you know what? Let's simplify it. Let's just do one nation. And then, there's a bunch of
different ways to play this nation.
Okay, let's cut it down to just this. okay, well, boy, there's a whole bunch, and so we kept cutting, and even when we cut it down to like the simplest, like it literally takes the exact same path every single time. It was still there was too much going on, and it just didn't really work. So
I got it to work. Okay.
I mean,
let the record
let's
stay.
break it down.
I mean,
I got it to work. Now, what I got to work, was it the game that you're going to be playing?
No.
But it was a game.
Okay. Speaking of sort of the complexity of the game, how hard do you think it is to teach this game?
So that's a good question. So, I mean, it is an asymmetric game, and so you are going to need to talk about, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. But because everyone follows the same basic pattern of rolling dice, placing dice on tiles, triggering the ability on the tiles, it's not terrible. It's not quite like vast level.
What if there's like you could make a little video for each country?
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we have kind of that in the How to Play video.
Well, with two.
Not on each
With
country.
two of them.
Yeah. But I feel like that's the thing. Like, watching the How to Play video is probably thorough enough because everyone plays in a kind of universal way. Like, you have tiles that you play your dice on. That creates resources. Whenever you want to add more tiles, you're going to drain other resources. You know, like,
Right.
the actual, like, mechanics of the core game are fairly simple. And it's up to you to learn, like, the individual puzzles.
Yeah. So I think having a little primer, a video or whatever, would be just like this is how your this is how what your unique thing is, and then giving a couple of tips like don't get rid of your sixes too early, or just a couple like you're gonna have a bad time if you
do this. Yeah, absolutely. And so I mean, it is definitely a more complex game than other games that I've designed. It's got a lot of moving parts.
But it's. I mean, I think it's. On the BGG scale though. I think it's like a 3 though.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not a 4 or 5.
No, this is not the same level.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our games have come in at 2, like Paperback Burger Bros. They're all like 2, 2.1. So this is a step up. I mean, Sabotage was only like 2.7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's in right in the middle.
Yeah,
it's a 3.
Yeah, so not terrible. You can definitely teach it to new players, especially if you give them one of the less complex nations like the United States. They're going to be able to pick it up and work through it, and then and so you shouldn't be too terrible to teach it to new players.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, I think the first time that I played, actually, I might have just jumped right in with Japan, but that's one of those ones where it's like, it depends on how you think.
It was made for you.
Yeah. But, like, I'm not a hardcore tabletop gamer, and I still picked up on Intrepid really quickly.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If there's anything else, so let's just wrap this up by saying thank everyone for their support thus far. If you haven't backed it, please look through the page, get a feel of how the game works. We think it's A, pretty fantastic, B, pretty different than a lot of other games out there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot going for it. So take a look, support us if you're interested, and thanks again.
Thank you all so much for everyone who's already supported.
All right.